podcast is powered by PKF. PKF, your trusted advisor in the Hunter for over 45 years. Down to Business acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and waters this podcast is recorded on.
Welcome to another episode of Down to Business. I'm your host, Andrew Beattie, and I've got a super coach joining me today, and Andrew Hughes. He's I don't know what he did in a previous life to deserve this, but a former chartered accountant and lawyer, glutton for punishment, a board director, but for the last 15 years, he's been a no BS, which I love, a no BS coach, trainer and speaker. Husband to Karen and father of 4 wonderful kids. He's the founder and director of Andrew Hughes Coaching. I love his lead quote that says, "Change begins with honesty." Hopefully we get that today. So welcome, Andrew Hughes.
Thank you for having me, mate.
Mate, let's really jump straight into that background, because I know everyone wants to be an accountant, but and a lawyer. So talk to me about your background and where you started your professional career, and you know, we'll get to where it led to today.
Yeah, so went off to uni and had a fantastic time. I suppose hopefully most people do at uni. I didn't do much study, and after 4 years I thought if I stay at uni I'll fail everything. So I actually went to a clerkship interview with KPMG in Sydney, and I got talking to the manager, and he was a rugby player, and I used to play quite a bit of rugby. So we started to talk rugby, and he happened to be a coach of a team, and he was like, "Oh, you play a bit of footy, do you?" I said, "Oh yeah, I did play a bit of footy." And next thing you know, I said, "Oh mate, you wouldn't have a full-time job, would you? Because I'm a bit bored with you." And he said, "Hold on a second." So he ducked out, went and spoke to HR, came back and said, "Andrew, we do have a full-time position for you." So that's how I started with KPMG.
Yeah, right. and I love it. There's so many good stories start with a sporting story. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, mate. Not many people realise, and I'm not going to say I'm qualified, but I did start out with medical science, and chiropractic was my first degree. But footy got me into the accounting business world. It's funny how that eventuates. So, you know, so team sport's been great, obviously, in your group.
Oh, mate, it was a huge part of my childhood. You know, I started, Dad had me playing rugby union at age 4. So I ended up retiring from contact early 20s, at which stage I think I'd played 18 years straight. So I was a bit old in that. So, and I loved, you know, rugby union was my game. But I love all sports. You know, I played rugby league, I played AFL, but yeah, I was a breakaway, cheeky breakaway who was often at the bottom of the ruck getting a few punches in the face. That was my game.
Deservedly.
Well, it's a matter of opinion.
So KPMG, but then you went the legal path.
Yeah, well, mate, about 18 months into that, I realised if I stayed being accountant, probably wouldn't end well because it was bloody awful.
Couldn't be that happy.
Mate, it was terrible. And, it's like, it's a bit different here. In a massive firm, you're a number. And that's, I was, you come up through the numbers and you get treated a certain way. And so I soon realised, maybe uni wasn't that bad. So I went back and finished my law degree. Went and worked for a judge. I worked for John Gallup, who was, by the time he retired, was the most senior judge on the federal court. And his son, who was the NRL.
Oh, yeah, David Gallup.
Yeah, David Gallup's father, yeah. And he was a hard-nosed, he's dead now, but he used to have that complexion, looked like the classic English judge, and he was always cranky. Yes, get on with it. But I had a great time. I drank a lot of wine when I worked with him, had a lot of wine, and had a lot of great times. Yeah.
So obviously that played out for a long while.
Yeah, mate, I ended up, I got attracted to the criminal law. I thought it might go and save the world. And the thing is, when you go and practice in the criminal law, what I hadn't appreciated is that criminals tend to lie to you. I sort of never put 2 and 2 together. And so it was great fun. I actually ran my first arson trial 6 months in. I'd only been out of uni 6 months, and what happened was one of the partners, who was a hopeless, crazy fella, said, "Andrew, can you go down and mention this down in court? Just get it adjourned. I'm in the Supreme Court." So I went, "Oh, okay." So I bowl on down to the court, and someone appears for the prosecution. "Yes, I appear for the defendant, Your Honour." "Yes, Your Honour, I'd just like to seek an adjournment of this matter because the solicitor, with the carriage of it, my partner, he's actually in the Supreme Court." "Is that so, Mr. Hughes?" "Mr. Prosecutor, are you ready to proceed?" Yeah, Shauna. Well, Mr. Hughes, we're on. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you half an hour because we've got a few mentions, have we, Mr. Yes, yes. Matters going to start for hearing at 10:30. So I nearly had a heart attack. Ran back to the office, tried to read the brief, which was, a foot thick. And it's terrible justice, isn't it? And then rushed back to court and sat there like a bunny rabbit in the headlights. So it was high stress, high pressure.
It's absolutely jumping the deep end.
Oh, yeah. It was good fun. We lived a crazy life. We, partied hard, worked hard. And then after 5 years, after people lying to me through their teeth all the time, which I got a bit sick of, I went off to do big corporate law. So I ended up working with the Australian government solicitor when it was privatised and running big cases. And you might remember when HIH collapsed? Yeah, so the liquidator sued the Commonwealth for $5.7 billion and I was the solicitor on the record for that. So, the heady heights of that. But, and I probably got to about mid-35s and I was like, I don't know if this legal game's for me anymore. And so then I moved into management. So that was my path out to get where I am now. Yeah,
right. So I guess for me, the thing we go into a bit of detail with that background, like some people think, once I go into something, I'm trapped. I'm set, maybe not trapped. But that's not the case. You can always make change.
It's the golden handcuffs, though, isn't it, Beats? People think, well, but look, I've got kids at school and I've got my car's on lease and I've got a mortgage and what else do I do? And I must say that was the thought that was plaguing me. I was like, well, I'm a lawyer. I know I don't want to be an accountant. No, mate.
Don't worry, mate. I don't want to be
no offence, mate. No offence, mate. So the question was, what am I going to do? Yeah. And I ended up getting into management, which I tend to be really good. I was just good at working with people. And I had high levels of staff engagement, blah, blah. Then they shoved me into marketing. But even so, I still thought I could not get out of the legal game. And the truth was, it was the bullshit I was telling myself. Because I now see the reason I was good at management, I was good at leading people, I was actually good at being a lawyer, was actually not because of my content skills. It was actually because I was good with people. And what's one of the trickiest things to do in business to do anyway? It's to work with people.
No. And I think that not to be flippant about anything, like you're absolutely right. It's the bullshit you got to get past.
Yeah.
But I think some people would hear that and go, oh, look, it's rainbows and butterflies. Like to make a move, there's still sacrifices, there's still change, there's still fears.
Oh, absolutely. So when I finally, what led me to get out was we had our fourth child, which was our 10th wedding anniversary present, was totally unexpected. And
don't know how it happened?
Yes, something like that. But what a great gift, my last daughter at home, Lily, so was fantastic. It actually made the family a lot calmer, would you believe it? But anyway, meditated for a month. Lily just been born, went up to the in-laws, had a month. I'd get up, get the kids ready in the morning, let Karen sleep in. And then the deal was once she came out, I'd go and meditate. And I was just doing some exercise and just basically a bit of quiet space. And after 2 weeks, I had this epiphany, which was, I don't think I can be a lawyer anymore. I think I have to leave. And then after 3 weeks, I realised I had no choice. I just had to leave. It was no longer an option for me. Because, it was massively unfulfilling. It was inconsistent. It was all this, I was the chief client partner. You know what that's like, but, sometimes got to sidle up to some rattlesnakes and kiss and squeeze and when you do that every day, all day, it's pretty taxing. I found it taxing anyway. So anyway, after 4 weeks, I just knew I had no choice. I had to resign.
Yeah, well, I think it's taxing because it's not authentic.
Exactly right. Yeah. Totally. I was totally inauthentic. People said, "Oh, you're so great, Husey. Oh, look at you go." I'd be like, I'd go home and go, "Oh, crikey, another day."
So you've ended up into coaching. And I tackle this one because these days, and you'd have to probably agree with this. Everyone's a coach.
Yeah.
You see it. Some of us was a butcher a few weeks back. Now they're coaching. No offense to butchers, obviously, but you get what I'm coming from. So how did that come about? They go, that term I'm going to coach, and obviously you make quite a success of it.
So Excuse me. One thing about coaches often end up in the game because they need coaching. So that's true, right? So you end up, people get drawn into it because they got stuff that they've got their own bullshit they need to deal with. And if I look at my own journey, the last 15 years I've been dealing with my own bullshit. Yeah, just so, and that's often, I don't know whether you find this in your game, but often when people come to me, I'll get a series of issues have come to me, and after third or fourth one I go, oh, hang on, am I doing that? So it was because of that drive I had to, I didn't leave the law thinking I'd be a coach or thinking I'd do leadership, but I always happened to be good at leadership, and I got into Stephen Covey, started working with Stephen Covey's company doing 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And when you start and working on myself, and the more I worked on myself and studied and began to understand how I worked, it was just natural to begin to share that. So that's sort of what led me into it. Was I great when I started? No. Was I awful? I don't know, maybe. Probably was a bit righteous, probably was a bit, thought I knew it all, which as you get a bit older, you realise, well, you don't know it all. Everyone's trying to do their best. But I suppose, and what ended up happening was when I was doing the coaching work or when I was doing the leadership work, people asked me back. So I was like, oh, well, must be all right at the then. And so get down the track now. Now I'm, I've got a pretty regular flow. I got really loyal clients, and I'm known for, being terribly honest with people, which I think is the only way. This is the only way people evolve is through owning their shop.
Yeah, and I think you raise a good point. Like, if we mentioned sporting teams before, not the best sporting teams have a coach. Some of the most successful people have a coach. Yet this podcast is obviously aimed at business owners. We've got business owners that every day of the week, the large majority, not only don't have a coach, they don't have any form of independent judgment or accountability and that sort of thing. Yet, expect to make change or expect to get some different result. It's quite ironic.
Yeah, and isn't it? And I imagine that so often you find the hardest thing is not the accounting information. The hardest thing is because you're coaching people all the time. You're coaching them to say, come on, get past that. Business owners going on each other, destroying their business because they got stuff that, well, the way you looked at me and the way you said that, or, I see that quite a bit.
Yeah.
I see, executives who mean well, have got a lot of talent, but there's just this one thing they won't stop doing. Why should I? Oh no, that's just BS. That's not true. They can't, fold any of that back to actually move on to when they're really powerful, really influential. So, and you're exactly right, people. It's like, well, I'm now in business. Oh, well, somehow I'm going to make it all work and I'll just focus on the dollars.
Yeah.
Which you've got to focus on the dollars, right?
Well, you do. I think the dollars are a good yardstick because they're quantifiable and they're pretty objective. Yeah, but it's what, I think too many people, and the balanced scorecards is the thing I always revert to, Kaplan, Norton, and they got their 4 quadrants, but 3 of those being, people and learning development, process and systems, and also that whole customer marketing space all drive the financial result. Yet how many business owners pay no attention to any of those and just look at the financial result? So, the big one you're into is people, so I completely agree. I guess we push on that, so, BS, and for those that haven't read between the lines, that's bullshit, but I mean, come on, we don't live in the world where there's bullshit or fakeness or withholding or insta life or whatever it is. How like we hear about it all the time, and I guess we've all got our own perspectives, but how common is it?
I'd say it's the standard operating procedure. The standard operating procedure is to not be honest, and I don't mean to be deceitful necessarily. But to hide what's really going on, what you really think, because you're worried about, well, how will that look? Or how will people perceive me? Or what will be the impact of that? Or, you know what, I'm going to go harder because I can't afford, or I don't want to let that other possibility be on the table. So however you play it, and, some people will just, their way of being a little bit dishonest is to just go quiet.
Yeah, I think another way to describe it, because when you say that, and I've had to think about this before, I think it's not just honest, it's withholding, because you can not speak and therefore not lie.
Yeah.
You can be honest, but you're not letting everything out there, and that's a big blockage, isn't it?
Absolutely, and because ultimately, we've all got a personality. Everyone, even accountants, have personalities, Pete.
Oh, not all.
So everyone's got a personality, and people say, "Oh, he's got a big ego," or "She's got a big ego," and that bloke doesn't. That's just untrue. Just the personality presents in a different way. So some people are loud, some people are quiet. Some people resist actively, some people resist passively. Yeah. Some people agree to get along and just keep on bending, and in the background do a little bit of white-handing or do a little bit of, gathering in the troops and a bit of supporter base. They're still strong. Everyone's got strong personality. It's just how it presents. Yeah. And exactly right. The withholding, in some sense, withholding in some ways is actually harder to manage because it's a little bit less obvious. Yeah. And the people who withhold often will want to say to you, no, I'm not withholding anything. No, honestly, I'm not. And they are. But they're no. Because they just, it's like, that's their strategy. So I'm not going to where you want me to go.
Yeah. And I think, it's a good point. I think, as you said before about, you said, as you're getting older or more experienced, whatever, you realise you don't know everything. But I think the other aspect is you also realise how much more important is listening rather than just speaking. And I find it funny with the people that, when you say, have you got a question? Yep. There's no question. It's just, I'm going to tell you what I want to tell you. Or the other one, and I find in business all the time, is where people just want you to do it their way. Yeah. That's that righteousness, and whether it's not about the result, it's did you do it my way? And it's like, you got to get over it.
Yeah. And to get, so often we're caught up in the way that we think and the patterns of behaviour that we have. And they serve a purpose. And what's the purpose? Because chances are when we're doing them since we were little kids, are you drastically a different person than you were when you're little? No, not really. Just the edges get a bit harder, or the armour gets a bit better on the outside.
Well, I think I've read that you build your belief system or your value system by 7 to 9.
Yeah, exactly right. And then we begin to put on the bazooka or put on the special armour or get another sword or whatever as we build our strategies outwards. And so what are those strategies trying to do? They're trying to, at a more of an unconscious level, keep you safe. What are you safe from? It's like a psychological safety, dare I say it, right? But it's that feeling of social harm where somebody said something to me and I feel attacked. It's not so much these days I'm going to get stabbed down the back corridor, although for some people, things like confronting conflict feels like life and death.
Yeah.
That's why people hate it so much. Being ridiculed feels like life and death because those little psychological pain points are so great, and then all of these strategies just right, okay, don't go there. These strategies are designed, you're never going there, so we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I'm not listening because I know if I listen, I might have to touch that.
So I think for me, a big part of this for a business owner, if you're listening or watching, it's really around understanding, is this playing out for you? And none of you can answer that, but you don't necessarily need to know the answer.
Yeah.
I guess you need to know that something's there, and how can I be more effective? Well, I probably need to get some independent outside opinions, evidence, and help.
And the thing is, but people leave so much on the table. They're using their energy in such a way where they're putting in, say, 10 units of energy, working, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm juggling this, I'm worrying about this, I'm worrying about that. And what output are they getting? They're looking at the scoreboard. Why isn't it climbing up drastically? Because you must see this. They put their energy in the wrong places. They're too controlling, or they won't speak up enough, or however it plays out. So once you begin to strip some of that back, then you go, okay, well, what if I play a different game? And then what happens is you begin to level the ledger a bit. So rather than 10 in, 1 out in terms of, the things you find hard, maybe it's like 5 in, 1 out. And maybe then it's like, okay, now I'm getting even Stevens. And maybe then if you continue to work and empower people and empower yourself and blah, 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 you start to be incredibly influential. So now it's like 1 unit of effort in, and look at that, I just got 5 units of reward out. So I think that's the game. And, you know, you and I, in a sense, are in the same game, it seems to me. You're doing it with numbers. I'm doing it by looking at personality. But it's pretty much the same game. How do you get more reward for your limited tank, for your finite amount that you can tip in?
Well, and that's, I do a lot of strategic plans, facilitation, and a lot of people think strategy is new products and big innovation, that sort of stuff. To me, and strategy is, realistically, how do you achieve an agreed common goal? With the maximising the allocation of your limited resources. And that's effectively what you're saying from even a personal point of view.
Absolutely.
You got so much time in the day. How do you get the best out of it? You got so many people in your staff. How many? I think it's ironic. Well, it's an actual problem. To me, that whole coaching concept when it comes to business, or if you talk mental health and life, it's a taboo topic to say you've seen a psychologist. And I go, well, I mean, there's a great podcast, The Imperfects, and they talk about that all the time. And go, well, why is it? Why do we wait till we're in dire straits to get help rather than start out with getting the best help to be the best we can? Yeah, probably going down another road here. But I mean, in a coaching sense, it's funny how many people they don't get trained in business. Yeah. They don't get trained in leadership, yet they think just got to do it myself, and it's a weakness to show that I need a bit of help.
It's true. There's a stigma associated with it, and the truth is everyone's doing some version of crazy. I don't care who you are. I've been doing this long enough now that I've seen people making serious money who come in with just as much crazy as the people who are making no money. It's not the external factors of success that is a good barometer of who's sorted their stuff out. It's not. Or the people who come in apparently uber confident who are totally solely self-unaware, and destroying the business around them, and people saying that bloke's got to go. Or that woman's got to go. So I think the game for me, I think the way in to begin to really get the best out of who you are and get the maximum return, you've got to first be self-aware. And when do we get taught self-awareness? I don't remember it at school. Do you?
No, and it's funny how much you. And I mean, don't get me wrong. You've sometimes got to go through a bit of experience and maybe some mistakes to realise the importance. But geez, it'd be handy to not make all those mistakes time and time again.
Yeah, I know. Well, and the worst is to make the same mistakes time and time again and not do anything about it.
That's right. Yeah,
that's it. And look, pain is the great teacher. When people come to me occasionally, it's like, oh mate, I'm great, but I just want to improve. I say, really? So what's this and that and this and that, and like a little bit Teflon-y, and they're the hardest people to work with because they're like, oh no, I already do that. No, that doesn't apply to me. You'll often find, I don't know whether you find this, the people who are most receptive to listening are the ones in a bit of pain.
I think, especially in my game where we are dealing more with cash flow and solvency and performance. If they're not, I think the perfect time, I remember when the GFC came about. Well, I'm not that old. Someone told me this story, but when the GFC came about, I had clients that have been talking to me for ages about cost rationalisation and, performance hurdles and this sort of stuff, but they're making money. When people are making money, it's amazing how much can get covered up. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, there was pain. And it's, geez, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. And I'm like,
Yeah, really?
So we've started touching it, but, I mean, talk about how does this play out in your experience? How does this play out in business, in businesses, I mean, when you've got potentially, BS from top down or in the executive level or even in teams?
Yeah. Well, fish rots from the head, as you know. Fish rots from the head. So, and I often work with executives, and often, it's executives who are like, they got good pedigree, good runs on the board, done a bunch of roles, high performers, and it's amazing. And you get people in the room and I say, so what's trust like? Oh, trust is fantastic. Really? Oh, yeah, we're so trusting in here. We're so trusting in here. And that's always a sign, I find. And then once you start to dig, and that's why I when I work with executive teams, I insist on, I need to talk to everyone individually. And then you find that there's things they won't say. There's things that they know are problems, but you know what, it's not worth addressing. Or there are issues that have been raised with them that they just want to fob off and don't want to address with. And then you start to realise, oh, you know what is a lack of trust? A lack of trust is, you know, in that pointy end, you want to get the best out of yourself, is I'm behaving in a certain way for the purpose of making sure I get the response I want from another. Yeah. Lencioni talks about it in his 5 dysfunctions of a team. And invariably, once we start to dig and I get that on the table, people's scores for trust go from 8, and once they're honest, it goes to 4, 3 or 4. It's astounding. Now, I'm not saying they're out stabbing each other in the back or something, but in terms of where they can be, they're only just scratching the surface. And then, of course, once they really get trust and can get all that honesty onto the table, then they can start getting into the really big decisions.
Yeah, I think on that point you just raised, it's ironic. I'm reading, almost finished Dan Carter's book, The Art of Winning, at the moment. Great rugby player. And one of the things he says from the All Blacks that I found, it just stuck out and says, you know, it's about that authenticity thing, saying, you know, be the real self, not the ideal self. How clever is that?
There's a lot. I had a good mate of mine who was in the All Black stream, who went through that whole process, and in the end did a bit of coaching work with him and executive teams he was involved in around the country, and so I was very aligned with him because they went through the exact same process. Total honesty. Let's get it all on the table. You know what? We're going to make it better to go forward, but you can't hide behind how you like people to see you, or what you think that might do the relationship just because I was honest.
And you're right. And I mean, you deal with a lot. I know you do teams, but you do a lot with the executives. And you know, in my experience, if that leader doesn't grow, the team doesn't grow.
Exactly right.
You know, and if the leader's blocking it, the team walks.
So true. So true.
So business owners, I think that's the biggest tip I could give for most people, is that, you know, we focus on learning development for team members. We focus on learning development for, you know, people we mentor, etc. You need to focus on yourself as well, and make sure you're growing, you know, innovating.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I generally find, in my experience, that people don't deal with issues, and you've already mentioned it a bit, because of that confrontation or fear of judgment, you know. What's some tips? How do you deal with that when you work with people, or what would you give from a business owner's perspective, how they can work on that?
So a couple of things I do. In a general sense, giving feedback is probably one of the times you're going to be your most vulnerable. Yeah, because it's awkward. Doesn't matter who you are. I mean, I don't love it. I imagine you don't love it, but sometimes you just got to do it. Yeah. And to receive feedback and listen, you also have to be massively vulnerable. But the thing about that is the gold in that you've yet to uncover is hidden beneath the things you won't talk about.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, as I always say to people, you know what? It's just as hard for someone to deliver it as it is to receive it. So treat it as a gift. Treat each other with care, and let's try to be honest with each other. Now, what does that mean? One of the things you've got to do is when you're giving feedback, you've got to let go of the charge, if you know what I mean. You know, so many people, when they have to give feedback, they're right, okay, no, this person's got to know. So all of a sudden now I've got a charge, or the charge might be, I don't want to say it, what are they going to think? So there's a charge. So you get this emotional charge, and it now governs what comes out my mouth, yeah? Which is often why you see normally 2 ways feedback goes, or those discussions go. At the end of it, the person who was meant to be getting the feedback goes, oh, that was a fantastic chat. Yeah, they just told me I was fantastic. So it never actually comes out because it's so indirect. Or someone comes out and goes, oh my God, my career's over, because it came out in such a rush that it felt, obliterating. So we've got to let go of that charge. The other thing and I don't know whether you want to get onto this now, but the other thing I use a personality tool to start to deconstruct and depersonalize the way we give feedback, but also the behaviours that we're likely to find are ineffective.
Yeah, because and I was going to address this when we talk about, take a top level sports team. You don't go and chuck a halfback in a front rower's position.
Yeah.
Well, unless you don't like the halfback, but, you know, but I mean, you know, like we always try to understand playing to strengths, you know, and it's the same in any team environment. Effective team, you understand everyone's different,
Exactly.
you know, and how do we manage them? How do we place them properly, etc. So, and you've done it with, I know, businesses with the, is it Enneagram?
Enneagram. Yeah.
So, you know, I got over the years, I've heard Myers-Briggs and Gallups and DISC and, you know, there's seems to be more and more and more. Why Enneagram and how does that work?
So why Enneagram? Enneagram I love because it's old. It's, you know, got its beginnings in 300 AD. It's been used for 1,000 years by mystic schools for understanding personality and deconstructing all of these barriers that we have up. And it's deep. It's not, you know, look, DISC and MBIT, is it? MBTI, whatever it is. They all have a role and there's many tools that are effective. What I love about the Enneagram is it takes you deep and it's very specific. And as I found over time, it's incredibly accurate, And in doing so, what it does, and it takes you back to some of that, you know, we were talking, you were saying before that the beliefs, you know, your belief structure 7 to 9, you know, you've probably built up, that's the imprint period before then. It actually sheds light on what behaviours you've got that are ineffective, what's the link? And by showing you that real, I suppose, topography of the map of how you do life, that's when you can make some changes. So, for example, let's say you had someone in the business who didn't speak up so much. I could go and say to them, and you could give them this feedback, you got to speak up more. They go, oh, okay. But at a deep level, that for them is like, that's like, you know, life, almost a life and death. It's so hard. And so you go back at 2 months, 2 weeks, a month later, and say, mate, you spoke up once, put that down, you spoke up once and I haven't heard you again. What's going on? And so, oh, yeah, I know, I got to do it. But when you don't understand why it is and what's the thing to overcome and what's really driving that, it's like asking a fish to climb a tree, you know, that classic saying. So the Enneagram points to why it is that you're likely doing that. And once you understand that, you can do something about that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we know, well, I'm happy to be challenged on this, but we know the base of a great team and great performance is communication.
Oh, yeah.
And without understanding how people communicate or what's stopping them, that's going to cause some pretty big dramas.
Well, isn't that the main tool of leadership? Take away communication, what do you got?
Oh, you got to, you know, probably beat someone over there with a bat or something, mate. But
Yeah, you got stuff all.
Yeah.
And what's communication? How I walk around the office, how I, you know, the actual speaking, my tone, how I connect with people, the time I give people. We're communicating non-stop.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that communication tool, and then once you begin to see what are the patterns of communication people have. Some people, when they communicate, will want to put a silver lining on everything. And you know those people. I mean, you probably got some clients like that, because clients like that often become entrepreneurs.
well, it's like the giving feedback and the shit sandwich.
Yeah.
You know, you've just totally missed what you're trying to achieve out of it.
Yeah. That never works, by the way. But it's better than nothing, I guess. So coming back to communication. So if you don't have honesty around your communication, then you're always ducking at shadows. You know, so-and-so's not speaking up about this issue over here because, you know what, I don't want to offend. Or so-and-so's over there saying, you know what, stuff them. You know, that's going to weaken my position. So I'm just going to hang. And people do that, hold on to information. Somebody else saying, well, I've got an idea and I'm just going to railroad over everyone with this idea. And people go, well, I don't agree with it, but you know what? Okay. Because I don't have it in me to resist.
And I guess that's come back to the coach aspect. That's I guess sometimes with a team environment is the importance of having an impartial and independent person there that can not shut people down, but quieten people down so others can come forward, et cetera, and sort of facilitate better communication, better conversations, and until it's innate in what they do, I guess.
And what I find, Beats, is initially it's hard. Like the first couple of times people are, you know, wincing and, you know, it's just terribly awkward and there's, you know, we get to a point and we mightn't get as far as we want to get and then still things on the table so we might have to come and revisit. But once people begin to get into this dance of, you know what, it's not personal. It's just the truth. Let's just talk about the truth. Don't make it personal. You know what, we're all doing, as I say, all doing some version of crazy or nicely ineffective. We're all doing some version of ineffective. So if we realise it's just a pattern, it's just a style, let's just talk about it. And with the individual, so that's in the team environment. With the individual, it's, you know, what I find with business owners, you know, high-level managers, executives, whatever you want to call them, they get exhausted. It's tiring. Yeah? Doesn't matter who you are. Whether you're the person who's out there making it happen, that's exhausting. You're the person who's like, you know what? Okay, don't put your head over the parapet. Don't put your no, that's okay. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. That's exhausting. The person who's always like, oh, it's so fun, it's so happy. Oh yeah, it's great. The cheerleader style. It's exhausting. Everyone at the end of the day, if they don't address the patterns and styles they're using, they just get exhausted.
Yeah.
And so, because so much energy goes into, you know, control that, control this, control that. Everyone's a control freak.
Oh, and it plays out in business. You'd see it where, you know, duplication of tasks or pick up, put down, lower productivity, sick days, you know, all these things that come back to, you know, we can have all the systems in the world, but if the people aren't right, we're not going to be as effective as we can be.
That's right. And you can still have a great business. All I'm saying is you're leaving money on the table.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the point. Like, some people will listen to this and go, you know, not for me, because they're happy just to status quo.
And it's okay.
But it's probably those that want to improve their wealth position or improve their, you know, business success, or, you know, get a better lifestyle with the business still working, that sort of stuff. That doesn't just happen. Yeah. You know? And for me, I sit there and go, well, you know, the likes of Tiger Woods have a coach. He's not a bad golfer. You know, Rafa Nadal have a coach. You know, the best, I could go business people have coaches or mentors. You know, mentors are the same thing, you know, from a point of view of listening to others, not thinking you know it all. So it's a pretty important part of the process.
I think so. And what I would say, and we probably just touch back on this, you know, the butcher who's a coach, maybe he's a great coach for butchers. Experience does matter, I think. Just, you know, having done the work on yourself, I think is important. Just because part of the journey is to understand, or to at least empathise, or have some connection with people and compassion with people for where they're at. And if you haven't worked through your stuff, how do you help others?
Well, you'd hope the butcher would get cut through, mate.
Boom, boom.
So if we look at that communication and, you know, being vulnerable, you know, and you've mentioned already, a massive part of that is trust.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, you know, for me, trust is hard enough when you've got a small team. It only gets harder as you get a bigger team. So what does trust in this whole, I guess, process mean to you? And again, how does that evolve?
Yeah. I think Paul Lencioni puts it well when he says, you know, trust is an understanding that, you know, someone you're in the trenches with has your back. That's trust. I can rely upon you. Not that I can rely upon you to cover for me, or I can rely upon you not to tell me the truth, but that, you know, when push comes to shove, we're heading in the same direction. So that's critical. You got to have that. And if you're not all heading in the same direction, it makes it pretty hard. Because, you know, if you really want to grow a business and take risk, you don't want to be worrying about, you know, is Peter over there, is he doing his job? Geez, is there a plot going on over there behind my back? You don't be worried about that. So then the next level of trust is once we get over that hump and we can trust each other to be honest with each other, and, you know, and when we're honest with each other, to not deliver it personally and to not take it personally, but to frame it in the concept of, well, that, you know what, we're just trying to be the best for each other. We're all on the same path here. Let's just do better. Yeah. When you can get to that, then the next level of trust is, rightio, we need some other people to help us.
Yeah, and I think to help that process, sometimes it's, you know, we talk to clients about soft skills, you know, like take legal, take accounting, but take engineering. I don't care what it is, whether it's services or even if it's product. We generally do learning and development, but we do it specific to what our deliverable is or what our output is, you know. Yet you could be in a leadership position or a management position, or when do you get any training on how to give feedback, on how to communicate effectively, on how to create trust. Like these are all real, how to manage your time, how to be organised. I implore any business owner to, have a learning development framework for their people, their self and their people. But at the same time, don't just do it, let's call it technical or product specific. Let's look at what's required for the role and to get the best out of people.
Yeah, I mean, I also think beats that. Your technical expertise. It's important, right? You don't want an accountant who doesn't understand the numbers. You don't want a lawyer who doesn't understand legalities, or you don't want a barrister who can't talk. Yeah. So, but in the context of teams and growing businesses, if you're not just a sole provider or a sole operator, then that's just your seat at the table. You get your seat at the table because you're technically proficient. The next bit is, how do I get the best out of myself, and how do I get the most out of people?
Well, reality is if you don't want to do that second part, you should be working with someone else.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah. And that then creates this challenge. I see some people who they end up being a business owner because they refuse to be controlled. Right. I will not. I am going to be a business owner. But then they get there and it's like, right, well, it's going to be my way or the highway and nobody can talk to me. It's like, makes it a bit hard because how do you grow? Because how does anyone trust that leader? How does anyone grow into? Because we all know leverage.
Yep.
What do we want? We want to focus on the big ticket items, which are in business, strategy,
performance, risk.
Yeah, all of those big deliverables, which means I've got to get out of the weeds.
And it's funny, if you look at the most successful people in this world, they're not doing everything themselves.
No.
No. So we're a good manager of people.
Yeah. And the other thing is that taps over into, if you do it properly, wherever you go, that's where you'll be, right? So if you're doing coaching properly, you just don't change, you change some stuff at that deeper identity level rather than just behaviours. You know what, you just want to change behaviours, go and get a bloody book. Go and get the latest personal development book. See how that goes. Practice those for a week. What is it? Atomic Habits was one of the latest ones. Put them on your list and just practice those every week. But if you want real change, so you don't have to be constantly disciplining yourself to do those things, I'm not saying don't do them, they're good ideas, by the way.
We don't have a lawsuit here, mate.
Yeah, that's right, exactly right. But what you want is go to that deeper level of why I do what I do, and then naturally you just do things differently. And not only do you do things differently when you're at home, you know what? If you've got a family, you're better at home. As my wife says to me, God love her, I probably started at a low bar, but, I'm a better husband, become a better father, become a better friend, better son, all of those things, because what I've been changing, when I've been doing the work myself is I'm changing at that more fundamental level. And and that just means I'm different everywhere. And I don't have to think about it. It's just how it is.
Yep.
Because I've done the work.
That's very good. So, let's talk about the effectiveness within the business. Because in my experience, a killer to, let's call it any plan or objective.
Yeah.
You give the best advice, you have the best framework, but really it's implementation or lack thereof. Firstly, do you agree? And secondly, how do you address that?
Oh, absolutely, 100% agree. Implementation is where everyone falls down, particularly when I'm dealing with business owners, and often that executive style of people who are great visionaries, they're great with ideas, they can be good with people, but where they get bogged down is implementation, and I've seen some people who play this crazy loop where they get excited, get investors excited, get their staff excited, and they go, excellent, my job's done, and they go off and focus on the next shiny, exciting thing. And then they come back and it's like, why isn't this stuff being done? There's a bit of thumping at the table. Come on, let's get excited again. And they just complete this circle, confusion. It's like excitement, confusion, anger, push and shove, get excited again, and we do this little loop. You've got to have accountability. You just must have, you have to have structure. A lot of business owners don't like structure. Accountants love structure, don't they, Vince?
Well, it's funny, mate. I think within reason, some really like it within how they work. Some really like it within, I guess what they do each day.
Yeah.
Others like myself, I love it for just making sure I get the most out of every day. It's fair. I don't think accountants in that sense are different to humans, even though you might think they are. But there you go. Like we got to look and say, nearly everyone. Well, it's a personality type, as you said.
It is. So structure is often something that's avoided. Some people are really rigid around structure. Other people will avoid it at all at all costs.
Yeah.
So you need structure. The other thing, you can't be, everyone's trying to control, whether I'm trying to control you by being nice, whether I'm trying to control the outcome by being quiet, or whether I'm trying to control the outcome by telling you what you should do. Everyone's trying to control, right? So you need to have a level of empowerment of staff, but autonomy, Dan Pink's book, Drive, which is, the summary of all the psychological sort of main triggers for motivation and performance. And one of them is autonomy, which is people want to do what they're great at. People want to win every day. So you've got to allow that. But the flip side of that, which is where your implementation comes in, you've got to have accountability and you've got to have consequences.
I think the other thing that you alluded to before is when you understand what you're good at or why you do what you do.
Yeah.
It's also not falling that trap of saying, I have to do everything, I'm taking on everything. It's saying, well, if I am the visionary, that's where I'm going to play and I'm going to make sure I match up with, the people that love info and love the detail
exactly
and that sort of
right.
stuff. And and then as a collective, we have that accountability.
Yeah. So what you're great at, you want to go deep on. What you're not so great on, absolutely get the support, but you still need to, you can't abdicate. Sometimes I find in business that you'll get, say you'll get 3 people, 4 people. You'll have someone who's great at the clients and someone who's great with the people and someone who's great being a content deliverer. But if the truth is, if they're running a business, they're all business owners, and the mere fact that they've got all different personality styles means they're going to have different perspectives. So while you need that bench strength, let's call it that, or your support, you can't abdicate and just say, oh, well, whatever, you do whatever. Because what'll happen, almost invariably, you'll get to a point you say, why'd you do that? Why didn't you talk to me about that? I totally disagree. And that then builds a level of distrust. You never want to get to that stage.
So you got to basically, take ownership.
Absolutely. You've got to be absolute, it's like when you're a director.
Yep.
You can't duck and weave. You can't say, oh, that wasn't my expertise. Yep. You're in for all of it.
No, mate. It's a topic close to my heart. We could talk all day, but I'm going to talk more about your business. So you decided when you went into this.
Yeah.
I'm gathering you didn't want to be controlled.
Exactly right. I want freedom.
You want to go to business. So running a business, as you said, no one gives you a blueprint how to run a business. And we've spoken about this plenty of times. Even if you get the theory, it's still very, very different when you have to go and go, shit, I've got to win a client. I've got to put food on the table. So what are some of your habits and rituals about your own business, that you apply?
Well, firstly, I'd probably say I've been learning the hard lessons like every business owner. Yeah, like every business owner. Structure. It's one of the things I hate. And 15 years later, I'm still getting better at it. And thankfully, my beautiful partner in life of 27 years, Karen, she and I together, she doesn't like structure either, but we work on it. Yeah. And as I get better in structure, I have more success. The thing that I've always been good at is getting in front of people. I mean, back in the day, I used to go to the opening of an envelope to give a speech. Just go and talk and, stand for something. And it's probably that's the one thing, if, from what we talked today, if I was to say to anyone, you want good staff, you want to be a business that really makes it, stand for something. Stand for, put a stake in the ground and tell people about it. How often do I talk to people who have got these great ideas, something that makes them stand out, something that makes it, it's a real, let's call it a unique selling proposition, but they're not going to tell people. And that's probably been a big part of my journey, Beats, is just moving more in, like the day where I came up, maybe I should talk about getting beyond your BS. I was like, well, should I? My Karen said, oh, you can't say that. You can't say that. But the truth is that's how I deliver, and that's more the authentic me. And, so that's been a big part of my journey, is this authenticity, being who you are and being prepared to talk to people.
Yeah. Because, like anything, you've got to be able to not only get in front of people, you've got to be able to identify an issue or a need fairly, or you said pain fairly quickly, and then be able to show that you can deliver on that. But I think it's interesting when you say stand for something, because a lot of people would go, we stand for something. They go and communicate it, and it's, features, facts, figures, product descriptions, as opposed to, what problem are you solving, or what purpose are you delivering,
And we know every buying decision is a personal one, unless you're buying milk down the shop or something. But even that,
Well, it is these days.
Yeah. So every
Don't get me started on coffee.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Let's not. A long discussion. But every decision's a personal one. And so, and people want, people are looking for authenticity. People want someone they want to feel the solidness of people. And, how hard is it to pick someone who's a bullshitter?
Mm.
I mean, you've got the meter on all the time, haven't you? I've got it on. Everyone's got it on. So, how many network events have we been to where it's just like a sea of grey or blancmange and people are running around trying to push their business card into your hand? You're like, yeah, good one, brother.
Mm.
So I think that authenticity and standing for something and being, you got to work out what you're going to say, but have something that's real for people to hook onto.
Absolutely. So with that in mind, biggest mistake and/or lesson you've had in business?
Mate,
just one.
I've had a few. Yeah, I've had a few. Look, the biggest mistake ever, when I first left the law, I got involved in a business with my brother. That was my first mistake. And the second mistake in that, it was totally inauthentic. Totally the most, in fact, I don't want to talk about it too much because I find it still incredibly embarrassing. An online project that was so inauthentic. And so every day I was pushing against my values and beliefs to do it for the purpose of, let's make some money.
Yep.
And surprise, surprise, I lost all of the money that we had in the kitty, and we had a bit. And it got to the stage, because I went from the penthouse to the shit house, I got to the stage of needing to get our groceries bought by my beautiful in-laws.
Mm.
Yeah. Some humble pie eating there.
Well, mate, and hats off for being able to share that, because it's good look in the mirror.
Yeah. And, there's moments like that where your partner in life, Karen, took me to one side as I was at the rock bottom and said, honey, you did not leave the law to do this rubbish.
Mm.
What did you leave for? And got me back to what mattered to me. And I've been on that journey since.
Yeah, good on you.
Yeah.
So with that, and that may be the same answer here, but best advice ever received?
Best advice ever received? Stop hiding. Probably. Advice I've received more than once.
Is that when you're at the pub?
No, and there's that authenticity piece. There's that putting the stake in the ground. There's that, being honest. I now find, and I don't know your experience of me, Beats, but I now am more and more frank. Just more honest, not in a judgmental way. I just tell people, this is what I see, and this is where I think you're leaving so much of who you are off the table. Mm. And I hit people between the eyes.
Well, it's funny how many people struggle with that. I'm a bit the same, and but it wasn't. It's funny how people think you've always been that way too, and that was not me previously.
Mm.
But maybe it's frustration you get over it after a while.
Yeah. Well, and there's the challenge is, how do I deliver it with compassion? Because so they hear. That's the challenge. So yeah, stop hiding. And I probably did that for many years.
Yeah, good on you.
Yeah.
Mate, we could talk this all day. I love the coaching, the people, But I'm going to try and put some wrap up points here for anyone listening and watching, and business owners in general. That's who our main target is. But I mean, this could apply to much more. But what bullshit do you tell yourself? I think that's something we need to be constantly asking. To perform, to really get better, we need independent, impartial input. That could be internal, but you need to create that environment. And I think, a coach makes you look within and really makes you reach for more or strive for a bit more. So, are you being honest? And honest or withholding? That's a key point to consider there. You've got to develop self-awareness. We didn't really touch into how you do that, but I guess the other thing is know what you don't know, or know when something's been an issue and put your hand up. Vulnerability is absolute key. Too many people have that defensive or pride or ego or fear, and what helps that is having care. Leaders and owners need to grow, otherwise their teams won't. There'll be that ceiling there. So we need to be looking at that. Communication is your biggest tool within not just business, but within the team environment. Make sure you've got a learning and development framework fit for purpose, fit for roles, not just on the product or the service you're delivering. I think that's absolute. Understand why you do what you do at that deeper level. You know, using tools that Andrew mentioned could be a good one for your leadership team and that to look at. Why you're not getting, you know, those extra results, etc. Implementation is key, and with that is structure and accountability. You know, have we got a framework or organisation in place to help with that? Taking ownership. You know, don't pass the buck. Don't abdicate. You got to take ownership. You know, get good at getting in front of people. I think it's a great business one. That's business development. How do you make a buck? You know, how do you grow your network, etc. As you said, be authentic always, because you know you'll get found out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You know, and the last one you said, you know, stop hiding. You know, that's a great one. So, mate, look, we could talk about this all day, but if people wanted to understand more about the man that is Andrew Hughes.
Website is andrewhughes.com. If you'd like to have a bit of a play with the Enneagram, and I'll send you some stuff to read, andrewhughes.com/Enneagram. There'll be a little editable PDF. You can download it, send it to me. I'll do some scoring for you, send it back with some reading material. It'll be interesting. Happy to have a chat to anyone. Yeah, mate, thanks for the opportunity. It's been great to talk.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, here's cheers.
Cheers.